There is a cast iron pan in my kitchen that is older than I am. It cooked for my parents and theirs before them, and it is smoother, blacker, and more truly nonstick today than the day it was made, and it will outlive me and cook for my grandchildren, and it has never once cost a penny to keep that way. Meanwhile, most folks buy a non-stick pan, watch the slick coating wear and flake and scratch within a few years, throw it out, and buy another, round and round forever. I am going to show you today how to care for a cast iron pan so that it becomes naturally non-stick, never rusts, and lasts not years but generations for free, and even how to take a rusty old ruined pan and bring it back to life. And the reason this knowledge was let slip is the same as always. There is no money in a pan that lasts 100 years. Here is the truth about cast iron that the non-stick pan company would rather you not understand, because once you do, you may never buy their pan again. Cast iron is just iron, plain, solid, near indestructible iron that holds heat beautifully and cooks like nothing else. By itself, it would stick and it would rust. But here is the wonder. When you coat it with a thin layer of oil and heat it hot, the oil does not just dry, it changes, it transforms, bonding to the iron and to itself into a hard, slick, black, natural coating, baked right onto the metal. This is called seasoning, and layer by thin layer, with use and care, it builds into a surface that is genuinely non-stick and that seals the iron away from rust. It is a non-stick coating, but a natural one, made of nothing but baked oil that you create yourself for free, that does not flake or scratch off into your food, and that, unlike the store coating, gets better and slicker the more you use the pan, instead of wearing out. The store pan's coating dies a little with every use. The cast iron pan's coating grows with every use. That is the whole difference, and it is everything. My name is Gideon Baylor. I am Amish, and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We cook on cast iron as our people always have, pans and pots and Dutch ovens, some of them generations old, black and smooth and slick, cooking over wood and flame day in and day out. We do not buy and throw away pans. A good cast iron pan, cared for, is a thing you hand down, not a thing you replace. I am going to show you the whole of it today, how to season a pan, how to clean it right, how to keep it from rusting, and how to rescue a rusty old one, so that you too can have a pan that lasts for generations. I am going to show you how to season a pan to build that slick black surface, then how to clean and care for it day to day, and finally how to bring a rusty, neglected pan back from the dead. I'm going to walk you through it slow and plain, and I'm going to be honest about the few things that ruin cast iron and a real safety matter or two, including one about oily rags that can genuinely start a fire, which I will be very plain about. There is also one detail about seasoning that is the whole difference between a smooth, slick pan and a sticky, tacky, ruined mess, and almost everyone gets it wrong the first time. Stay for that part especially, because it is the secret of the whole craft. Here is what you need, and it is almost nothing. You need a cast iron pan, one you have, or one bought cheap, or a rusty old one rescued from a yard sale or the back of a cupboard. You need oil. A plain cooking oil with a high smoke point works well, and just a little is needed. You need cloth or paper to wipe with. For cleaning, you need hot water, a stiff brush or a scraper, and coarse salt makes a fine, gentle scouring scrub. And for seasoning, you need a way to get the pan hot, an oven or a stovetop or the heat of your wood stove, a pan, a little oil, a cloth, hot water, salt, and heat. That is the whole of it, and the care costs nothing. Now, here's the secret I promised, the detail that decides everything. So listen close, because nearly every ruined seasoning job comes down to this one thing. The oil must be wiped on in an extremely thin layer, so thin it looks like there is almost none left. Here is why. When you heat oil to season, a thin film transforms into that hard, slick coating. But if the oil is too thick, if it pools or sits in a visible layer, it cannot fully transform. Instead, it bakes into a sticky, tacky, gummy mess that never hardens right and feels gummy forever. So the rule is oil the pan and then wipe it back off. Wipe and wipe until the pan looks almost dry, until you would swear there is no oil left, just the thinnest invisible film. That thin film is what bakes into a perfect hard slick layer. Then you do it again, another thin layer and another. Many thin layers, not one thick one, is how you build a good seasoning. Thin enough to look dry, repeated many times. Get that right and your pan turns glassy black and slick. Get it wrong, lay the oil on thick, and you get a sticky, ruined surface. Wipe it almost dry. That is the secret above all. So here is how you season a pan. You start with a clean, dry pan. You put a small bit of oil on a cloth and rub it all over the pan, inside and out. Then, the secret, you take a clean cloth and wipe it back off. Wipe and wipe until it looks almost dry, just that thinnest film. Then you heat the pan hot, past the point where the oil smokes, in a hot oven turned upside down with foil beneath to catch drips, or on the stovetop, or in the wood stove. And you hold it at that heat for a good while until the smoking stops, and then let it cool. As it heats, that thin film of oil transforms and bonds into a hard layer. Then you do it again. Another thin wipe of oil, wiped almost off, heated hot, cooled. Each round adds a thin, hard, black layer, and after several rounds, you have built up a good base of seasoning, smooth and dark. And the best news, every time you cook with a little fat after that, you are adding to the seasoning. So a pan you simply use and care for keeps getting better and slicker for years. Now the daily care, which is where folks go wrong and rust or ruin a pan. To clean a cast iron pan after cooking, while it is still warm, wash it with hot water and a stiff brush or scraper to lift off the food. If something is stuck, a scrub with coarse salt as a gentle abrasive scours it off without harming the seasoning. Now, the old rule was never any soap, because the harsh lye soaps of old would strip the seasoning. With today's mild dish soaps, a little soap now and then will not hurt a well-seasoned pan, but you still never soak it and never scour it down to bare metal. Here is the part that prevents rust, and it is the most important daily habit. Dry the pan completely, immediately, every time. Cast iron rusts if left wet, so you dry it at once, and the surest way is to set it back on the warm stove or in the warm oven for a minute so every bit of moisture is driven off. Then, while it is warm and dry, you wipe the thinnest film of oil over it to protect it and put it away. Wash warm, dry completely at once, oil lightly, put away. Do that, and your pan will never rust, and its seasoning will only grow. Now, I have to be honest about what ruins cast iron and the safety matters, because I always am. The things that ruin a pan are leaving it wet, which rusts it, soaking it in water, same, scouring it down to bare metal, which strips the seasoning, and cooking very acidic things like tomatoes for long times in a poorly seasoned pan, which can eat at the seasoning and give the food a metal taste, though a well-seasoned pan handles it fine. Avoid those, and a pan lasts forever. Now the safety. First, A hot cast iron pan and handle stay dangerously hot long after cooking, and the handle gives no warning. So always treat the handle as hot and use a cloth or a mitt. Second, when seasoning in the oven, it will smoke, so do it with good ventilation, a window open, and the fan on, for the smoke is sharp. And third, the important one, oily rags. The cloths and paper towels you use to wipe oil on the pan are soaked in oil. And oily rags, if you ball them up and leave them in a pile, can actually heat up on their own and catch fire by themselves. This is a real and known cause of house fires, so you never leave oily rags balled up. You lay them out flat to dry or wash them or where safe, burn them, but you never toss a pile of oily rags in a corner or a bin. Mind the hot handle, ventilate the smoke, and never pile up oily rags. Honest is always better than careless. Now, let me give you the deeper part, bringing a rusty, ruined pan back to life, because this is the magic of cast iron. It can almost never be truly destroyed, only neglected, and neglect can always be undone. You find a cast iron pan red with rust, crusted, looking ruined and fit for the scrap heap, and you can bring it back better than new. First, you get the rust off, scrub it hard with steel wool or a stiff wire brush or coarse salt and a scraper, working off all the rust and any old crusted gunk down to clean gray metal. A rusty pan can be scoured right back to bare iron, and that is fine, for you are going to re-season it. For a badly crusted one, a long soak in vinegar loosens stubborn rust, though you watch it so the vinegar does not eat the iron, and rinse and dry it at once after. Once you have it scoured down to clean bare gray metal and dried completely, you simply season it from scratch. Thin layer of oil wiped almost off, heated hot, cooled again and again, and that rusty, ruined, thrown-away pan becomes a beautiful black slick pan once more, good for another 100 years. There is deep satisfaction in rescuing a pan everyone else gave up on, and these old pans are often better iron than anything made today. A rusty cast iron pan is never ruined. It is only waiting to be brought back. Let me give you the troubleshooting. If your seasoning came out sticky and tacky, you used too much oil. That is the great mistake. Strip it back and re-season with much thinner layers, wiped almost dry. If your pan is rusting, it is being left wet or not oiled. Dry it completely and at once, and oil it lightly after every wash. If food sticks, your seasoning is still thin or worn. Keep cooking with a little fat and adding thin seasoning layers, and it will slick up over time. If food tastes metallic, you cook something very acidic in an underseasoned pan. Build up the seasoning more and go easy on long simmered tomatoes until it is well seasoned. Nearly every trouble comes back to too thick oil, leaving it wet or thin seasoning, and all are easily set right. Let me tell you more about choosing a pan, because the right pan makes everything easier, and the best ones are often free or nearly so. A cast iron pan you inherit or find at a yard sale or in the back of a cupboard is often better iron than anything sold new today. The old pans were cast thinner and smoother, and the metal was fine, so a rusty old pan rescued from a sale is a treasure, not a cast-off. New cast iron is good too and cheap, though often rougher and needing more seasoning to slick up. Either way, what you want is a solid, unbroken pan with no cracks. Do not be put off by rust or black crust on an old one, as I will show that all comes off and the pan beneath is sound. A heavy old skillet, a Dutch oven, a griddle, a cornbread pan, these were made to last centuries, and they have, and one well cared for will serve your grandchildren. Let me say more about the two ways to season, because you can do it without an oven at all. The oven way I described thin oil wiped almost off, the pan baked hot upside down until the smoking stops, cooled, repeated several times, gives the most even seasoning all over the pan at once. But the old folks seasoned on the stove top or over the fire, and you can too. Wipe the thin film of oil on, set the pan over good heat on the stove or the wood stove, and heat it until it smokes and the smoking stops. Let it cool and repeat. Stovetop seasoning works the cooking surface best, which is what matters most. And the truth is, the very best seasoning of all is simply cooking. Every time you fry an egg or sear something in a little fat, you are laying down another whisper-thin layer of seasoning, so a pan that is simply used and cared for grows slicker and blacker year after year on its own. Season it to start it off, then let cooking do the rest. Let me say more about cooking in it, because cast iron rewards you for using it. It holds heat like nothing else, so it sears and browns beautifully and keeps an even steady heat for frying, baking, and slow cooking. A cast iron Dutch oven will bake bread, simmer a stew, and even bake over coals. The more you cook fatty, searing things in it, eggs, meats, frying, the better the seasoning grows. The one thing to go easy on while the seasoning is young is very acidic. Food cooked long, like a tomato sauce simmered for hours, which can eat at a thin, new seasoning and taste metallic. But once the pan is well seasoned and black and slick, even that is no trouble. Cook in it often, cook fatty things in it, and it only gets better. The pan that is used every day is the pan that turns glassy and perfect. Let me give you a fuller picture of bringing a ruined pan back because it is worth dwelling on. You can find a cast iron pan that looks utterly finished, red-orange with rust, or black and crusted with decades of burnt grease, and everyone would tell you to throw it out, and they would be wrong. Scour off the rust with steel wool, a wire brush, or salt and a scraper down to clean gray metal. For stubborn crust, a soak in vinegar water loosens it, watched closely and rinsed and dried at once so the vinegar does not pit the iron. When it is down to clean bare gray metal and bone dry, you season it from scratch, thin oil, wiped almost off, heated hot, cooled several times, and that pan everyone gave up on becomes black and slick and beautiful, good for another century. There is real satisfaction in it, and it is how families have always kept these pans alive across generations, not by replacing them, but by reviving them. Now, I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Think about who profits from your worn-out nonstick pan. The store pan is sold to you with a slick coating that, from the very first use, begins to wear, scratch, and flake. A coating with a short life by its very nature, so that in a few years the pan is no good and into the trash it goes, and you are back at the store buying another and another every few years for the rest of your life. That is a fine arrangement from their side. A pan designed to wear out and be rebought forever. There is no company that profits from a cast iron pan that costs little, lasts 100 years, gets better the more you use it, and can always be rescued from rust for free. The cast iron pan is the enemy of the whole replace it every few years business. It is bought once or inherited and never replaced. So the simple old knowledge of how to season and care for cast iron was let slip away, and folks were sold instead the throwaway pan with the dying coating. Not because cast iron stopped working, it works better than it ever did, but because a pan that lasts forever can only be sold once. So here is what I want you to do this week. If you have a cast iron pan or a rusty old one in the back of a cupboard, or one you can buy cheap at a sale, take it and care for it right. Scour off any rust to clean metal, then season it. A thin wipe of oil, wiped almost dry, heated hot until it stops smoking, cooled, and again several thin layers. Then cook with it, and after, wash it warm, dry it completely at once, and wipe it with the thinnest film of oil. Mind the hot handle and never pile your oily rags. Do that, and you will have a pan that turns slick and black and never rusts and lasts longer than you will. Tell me in the comments below, do you have an old cast iron pan handed down, or a non-stick one you have already replaced more than once? And did your grandmother have a cast iron pan she swore by? I read every single one of these, and the old ways you all share are the reason I keep doing this. Next time, I'm going to show you how this house cares for its wooden things, the cutting boards and the spoons and the bowls, so that they too last for generations instead of cracking and wearing out. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, wipe the oil thin, dry it at once, never pile the oily rags, and remember the people who built this country with their hands, new things we are only just starting to remember.